Hey everyone, happy February. This is going to be the astrological overview for February 2022. And today is the 1st. I'm Sarah from Third Eye Kiss Astrology, and I'm going to do my best to do this quickly. So on the 1st, so today, we have the Aquarius new moon. So the sun's already been in Aquarius for a bit, but now we have the new moon, which means the sun and the moon are at the exact same degree in the sky. Something interesting about this new moon is that it also represents the Chinese New Year. And so for the Chinese New Year, as opposed to our New Year, which is based on the Gregorian calendar and a 365 and a quarter day year. This is based on the 28 to 29 day lunation cycle. And what happens is every year, starting on the New Year, we have what is considered the 13th lunation of any given year. And so we have 12 months. Within those 12 months, there are 12 lunations, right? New moon to full moon, back to new moon. Each month we have this happen. And so 12 lunation cycles go through. And then when the 13th starts, that's the Chinese New Year. And so it's based on the lunar calendar. We also had Imbolc today, which is the point that is right between the winter solstice and the spring equinox. So there's kind of these two big moments that are happening as far as like the collective zeitgeist goes, as far as the collective energy goes. And they represent in some ways this movement from being really in the heart of winter to starting to inch our way towards the light, towards the spring, towards the time of year when things are growing, even though we're still in the heart of winter, because Aquarius is a fixed air sign ruled by Saturn, and it really holds the quality of winter. We're still moving towards this new kind of energy. So it's an exciting time, and there's a kind of feeling of a momentum shift, right? Maybe if we haven't actually gotten the inertia to make changes or, move in a more exuberant way, but we can start to sense that something's stirring underneath the surface. And so this is an exciting time for Imbolc and then also for the Lunar New Year. So that's on the 1st, that's today. The next thing that happens on the 3rd is that Mercury goes direct. And so Mercury and Venus, actually, Venus just went direct on the 29th, but Mercury and Venus have been in retrograde. Mercury since the beginning of the year, I think it was January 4th, Venus since December 19th, and Venus just went direct on the 29th, and Mercury is going to go direct on the 3rd. So we're still in retrograde city in a lot of ways, but we're moving. And so we can kind of anticipate if there's been any mercurial things that have been louder lately, that they're going to start to come to some sort of conclusion as Mercury stations direct and then moves over the same degrees that it already has been on. So that's something else for February the 3rd. February the 4th, we're going to have the sun conjoining Saturn. And so Aquarius is, like I said, the fixed air sign that's ruled by Saturn. And so the sun conjoining Saturn, well, first of all, it only happens once a year, but secondly, the sun is in Saturn's sign while Saturn is also in Saturn's sign. And so even though Saturn and the sun don't technically see eye to eye, they're opposing, they're opposites, right? The Saturnian is more about having to negate oneself for the greater good, whereas the solar archetype, the Leonine, is more about being the largest expression of the self as is humanly possible. So there are these two kind of opposite extremes, but they still live on the same continuum. And so the sun is in a place that it doesn't necessarily like to be. The sun's actually in its least favorite sign besides Libra. So, and when I say that, it's not because there's anything wrong with Aquarians, it's just that the sun can't do solar things as well when it's in the sign of Aquarius. but having it conjoin Saturn, there may be a moment where we have to take like a sober or hard look at the way that things are. If there's any changes that need to be made, this may be a moment where we actually have the grit and the kind of desire to change things in a positive way. So that is on the 4th. Let's see. On February 14th, Valentine's Day, Mercury is going to go into Aquarius. And so we're going to have another moment of Mercury going into Aquarius because, again, like I said in the beginning, Mercury had a retrograde, and when it was direct, before it went retrograde on January 4th, it had already been in the sign of Aquarius. So Mercury went forward into Aquarius, and then it moved backward into Capricorn, and then it's going forward again, and it's going to move back into Aquarius on the 14th. So Mercury has been spending a lot of time in Saturn signs. A lot of planets have been spending a lot of time in Saturn signs. We're going to get to Venus and Mars in a little bit, but we have Saturn there, we have the Sun there, we have Mercury there, we have Pluto there. Mars and Venus are all there in one of the two Saturn signs, Capricorn and Aquarius. So a lot of this lunation centers around Saturn and the Saturnine and the Saturn qualities, which have a lot to do with structure and restriction, the past versus the future, whereas the solar qualities are more like beingness. Capricorn is more about planning, because of or knowing how to plan because of the past, and Aquarius is more about needing to plan for the future. So whereas the Sun has to do with the present moment, these two signs have to do with linear time. And so we may feel like we're hemmed in on some level by linear time right now, more so than in other times of the year. And that is, this is a part of the process of winter, which is a time to look inward, a time to get rid of the things that aren't serving us, a time to let go of things that are that don't have ultimate meaning, right? That might be nice, but that aren't inherent or essential to how we're going to move forward. So this is really a time where we start to separate wheat from chaff and decide this is something that's important versus this is something that's not. So so that's Aquarius season in a nutshell. And that's also just Saturn in a nutshell. And this whole movement of Saturn in Aquarius, which has happened since 2020, really, it started in 2020 at least, has been a lot about the way in which basically what we can't do if we want to move into the future in a way that is empowered and healthy for the planet. And so Aquarius has been showing us our own limitations. And so the Sun in Aquarius this time right now is just bringing that back to the fore. So let me see where we're at. So then on the 16th, we're going to have the full moon. So like I said, on the 1st, we have the new moon in Aquarius. While it's in the new moon phase, it's going to be squaring Uranus, the planet of sudden changes, and it's closely conjoined Saturn. It's about 5 degrees off. And so for all of 2021, we had Saturn square Uranus. I've talked about this a lot, the Saturn square Uranus dynamic. And so this is kind of a reinvigorating of that with this new moon cycle. So more, again, back to what I had said initially, this sense of needing freedom, but having limitations in our ability to get it. And so it's like a immovable force meets an unstoppable object, or an unstoppable force meets an immovable object, whatever the saying is part of this cycle. But there is a sense that we're going to catch some actually catch some movement. Whereas for the past year, it's been feeling like we're not going to really be able to make any movement, even though we want to. So there is that. Water. And then when the full moon goes into Leo, we have this moment of, again, the solar archetype of wanting to be here in the present moment and enjoy what is, versus the need to plan for the future coming up against each other and making this opposition. And we're going to feel it when it's made. And something interesting that's happening at the same moment, we have Venus and Mars conjoining. And so something interesting about this, as I had mentioned before, Venus was retrograde for most of January, and Venus is going to slowly start to, well, it's moving forward now, but in this particular instance, Mars, who's also in Capricorn, exalted in Capricorn, Mars is going to catch up to Venus, and it's going to pass, and it's going to conjoin Venus, and then it's going to pass Venus. And so typically it goes, obviously the fastest moving planetary body is the moon, and then Mercury, and then Venus, and then Mars. So the fact that Mars is catching up with Venus and surpassing her is kind of a crazy moment for us. And so it's something to pay attention to. It's happening on this lunar cycle. There's a connecting of the yang fighter archetype with the Venusian pleasure-seeking archetype. And so it's going to be a big moment, I think, for masculine and feminine, but also this kind of desirous versus pleasure-seeking energy. And they're going to be in some way in union, and they're going to actually cross over, make a cross again in March, though. So we're going to see this happen in Capricorn in February. But then eventually Venus is gonna go faster than Mars, and she's gonna basically like tag it and pass Mars. So that's happening on the full moon on the 16th. And then the last thing that I just wanted to touch on is the sun moving into Pisces on the 18th. So it's gonna be Pisces season while Jupiter's in Pisces. So this is an exciting moment. Jupiter in Pisces is a great energy. And so the sun going into Pisces, where its ruler is in Pisces, is just going to be a really feel good energy. So I'm really looking forward to Pisces season. I'm a Pisces, so I'm extra excited about it. And then at the end of the month, we're going to have Jupiter sextile Uranus, which is like a big, expansive, brilliant kind of energy. So this is kind of the short list. And like I said, I wanted to make this short because I don't want to make it too daunting for myself. But essentially the story here is about Saturn. It's also about Jupiter and Pisces. But yeah, there's a lot of Saturn stuff going on. There's a lot of limitations, but we've been already dealing with the limitations. So there feels like there's something that's going to kind of give us an ability to break out of them. So that is my very quick overview of February 2022. I hope that this was helpful. Please feel free to reach out to me at Third Eye Kiss on Instagram or here with any questions. Okay, thanks everyone.